Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Talked quite a bit recently about automotive recalls and so on ordered by NHTSA. And I've mentioned before that the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, can also order recalls of consumer goods. And in fact, we talked about that a couple days ago. So right now we're going to talk about another CPSC issue involving a product that they think should be recalled, but the manufacturer disagrees. And Mark, Phillip, Josh, Jeffrey, and Trocon all sent this to me. They said, Steve, it involves Peloton. And I've mentioned before, I have a Peloton. I've got the bike Peloton. I ride it every morning. About an hour ago, I was on my Peloton. So I love my Peloton, but it's the bike. And what we're talking about here is a treadmill. So the CPSC can ask a company to recall a product that they consider to be dangerous or a safety hazard. And if the company does it, great. If the company doesn't do it, then they can get involved in some issues, and they could theoretically even go to court and try to force the company to do recall. But they'd have to prove that they have a basis for doing that. So what's going on right now is the CPSC issued a statement involving Peloton treadmills, just the treadmill, not the bike, Peloton treadmill. And Peloton issued a statement in response. So I'm going to tell you both sides of this. I'm not going to just do one side or the other. And by the way, I like Peloton. I don't own stock in them or anything like that. It's just when people ask me about them, I say I do like my Peloton. So the Consumer Product Safety Commission issues a warning, and they even showed a troubling video after a child got caught under a Peloton Tread Plus. That's the name of the product, the Tread Plus. The Consumer Product Safety Commission sent out a warning about a Peloton brand treadmill after 40 incidents of people getting hurt. So they say that they've heard of 40 people being hurt by the Tread Plus Peloton treadmill. They said they're aware of dozens of instances where children were pulled beneath the Tread Plus, formerly known as the Tread. Now, here's the issue. I don't run on treadmills. I do run outside, and I've tried running on a treadmill, just didn't quite get into it. But a treadmill's got the surface that goes around, and you run on top of it. And as you're running, the surface goes like this, and there is a point in the back where the treadmill goes around a roller and goes back up, and so it can be a loop. And so if you think about it, as the surface goes around and starts going back this way, if something were to go underneath there, it would get pulled under. And that's the issue, is that there have been instances where kids got too close to a treadmill that was running and touched that or got under that, and then you can get pulled underneath the treadmill. So in the video they put on their website, the child was able to escape and walk away, but it was a pretty ugly video. Still, the CPSC staff feel that the Tread Plus poses serious risks to children and has urged those with children at home to stop using it. The agency has learned of children becoming trapped, pinned, and pulled under the back of the machine. Now, the CPSC says they're aware of 39 incidents, including a death, a pet getting injured, and objects being pulled underneath the machine as well. The commission has launched an investigation into the death. Peloton has issued a response to the CPSC's report, calling it inaccurate and misleading, which I will get to in a second. So here's the issue. Somebody has a product they put in the marketplace. Someone gets killed. So the manufacturer of the product now is on notice that somebody died. And I've actually known people who work for different manufacturers, different products. And there's a whole process, and many big companies have got departments whose job it is to oversee these kinds of things. So Peloton issued a press release, and I believe the press release came out just yesterday. So their headline is, CPSC publishes misleading, inaccurate bulletin on Tread Plus product safety. So there's two sides to every story. Peloton cares deeply about the safety of its members, and one of its core values is putting members first. The company is troubled by the Consumer Product Safety Commission's unilateral press release about the Peloton Tread Plus because it is inaccurate and misleading. And notice that Peloton refers to its people as members because you buy the product, like the treadmill or the bike, but then you subscribe, and one of the things you get is you can have this interactive screen that as you're riding your bike or running in your treadmill, there's a screen that either has someone who's conducting a class that you're going along with. They can be live, they can be pre-recorded. Or in my case, I ride my bike and I'll actually watch a screen that shows me as I ride through the countryside of France or South America or someplace. And it's just a pretty cool thing that you can do that. So they are members because you are paying a subscription fee. Peloton says, There is no reason to stop using the Tread Plus as long as all warnings and safety instructions are followed. Children under 16 should never use the Tread Plus, and members should keep children, pets, and objects away from the Tread Plus at all times. Peloton was shocked and devastated to learn in March that a child died while using the Tread Plus. Within a day of learning the news, Peloton notified the CPSC. So they did notify, which they're required to do. While preparing its report to the CPSC, Peloton learned through a doctor's report to the CPSC's public database that a child had experienced a brain injury. Peloton spoke to that family, who reported that, and the child is expected to fully recover. Not wanting to delay in notifying members, Peloton's co-founder and CEO sent an urgent reminder directly to Tread Plus members in March to follow the critical warnings and safety instructions that accompany the Tread Plus, which state that children, pets, and objects should be kept clear of the Tread Plus at all times. Members were also reminded to remove the safety key and store it out of reach of the children when an adult is not using the Tread Plus. So the Peloton bike that I have, you got to walk over and turn it on and sit down on it and you pedal. It just pedals. Now there is a wheel in the front that creates the resistance, and I've never looked at that to see if you could hurt yourself on it or not. But to get that wheel to turn, you got to turn the pedals. And the way my seat is set on my bike, unless you're about as tall as me, you couldn't turn the pedals sitting on the seat. Now, I guess you could wedge yourself in there and stand on those pedals and pedal it. But even then, I'm not sure how much that front wheel would turn, and if so, it would be dangerous or not. Apparently, the Tread Plus has got a safety key on it that you put the key in, and now it'll work. And if you pull the key out, it won't work. And so they've got warnings all over this thing that say, if you're not using this, remove the safety key. And that way it won't get moving. And in the video they showed of the child who got pulled under, there's two kids playing on a treadmill that's operating. And now there's video of this, but it looks like the video is fixed. So it might be like a nanny cam or something. But there's video being shot of two children, one of whom is standing on the Peloton, but somehow standing in a way that they're not standing on the mat. And the other child is playing down near the back end of it. And then playing down there gets pulled under. And so the question is, why is this thing turned on with no adults present? And so Peloton has a very good point here. They say you got to remove the safety key and store it out of reach of children. As hoped, this message received widespread attention, further reinforcing this vital safety message. Following this message, Peloton received additional reports of incidents that had previously occurred, that had happened before they sent out this message. Peloton promptly reported those additional incidents to the CPSC and provided all subsequent details that were requested by the CPSC, with the limited exception of certain personally identifiable information that a few members explicitly asked us not to volunteer. So a couple people reported stuff to Peloton and said, but don't give our personal information out to anybody. We don't want that happening for whatever reason. In order to protect those members' privacy, Peloton honored those requests and did not provide that information until they were subpoenaed to do so by the CPSC. And again, that's the proper thing. Most people would say that if you gave your medical records to somebody, which is in essence what you're doing here, saying, hey, a kid got injured or whatever, or I got injured, but don't give that information out, with my attached to my name, then they said they passed the information along just without the personal identification information. So the importance of following Peloton's safety warnings and instructions is abundantly clear in the video that CPSC included in its press release. In particular, Peloton instructs members to remove the safety key when the Tread Plus is not in use, precisely to avoid the kind of incident that this video depicts. When the safety key is detached as instructed, the Tread Plus cannot be turned on. The Tread Plus includes safety warnings and instructions in several places, including in the user manual, in a safety card on the top of the Tread Plus tray. It's there when it's delivered, and on the product itself. So these warnings are everywhere. You can't miss them. Since receiving the March 18th message from Peloton, members have also shared other ways to keep children safe during home workouts. They schedule workouts during nap time or at night when children are asleep, or they have a spouse or partner watch the children in another room. Some tell us they use a baby gate to keep children and pets away and objects away from their fitness equipment as well. And it goes on to explain some more issues here and more statements about what's going on. But Peloton believes that the Tread Plus is safe for the home when used in accordance with warnings and safety instructions. The company is committed to taking whatever steps are necessary and appropriate to further inform members of potential risks and remind them of measures they need to take to safeguard themselves and others in their households. Peloton will also continue to work to develop industry-leading safety features for connected home exercise equipment. So Peloton has invited the CPSC to make a joint announcement about the danger of not following the warnings and safety instructions. And the CEO asked to meet directly with the CPSC. And so then they talk about what they think with respect to the warning issued by the CPSC. And so here's where we get into the issue. There are some items out there that seem to be dangerous, that you just simply look at it and go, wow, that's dangerous. Some of the stuff they made back in, around the turn of the century. I remember my mother had a popcorn maker that was a metal pot, and you filled it with hot oil, and then you poured the popcorn into it, you put a glass lid on it, and it had one of those old cloth-wrapped cords that plugged into the wall. And I remember looking at that going, and so what happens if a little kid comes by, looks up, and sees a cord hanging off the table and pulls the cord? And you can imagine what would happen. And so things like that don't get made anymore, for the most part. Most of those things have worked their way out of the marketplace, so to speak. So you have a treadmill. And by the way, there's other companies that make treadmills. There's a lot of treadmills out there. It's just that there's a lot of Peloton treadmills right now because of what's been going on with COVID and people buying home exercise equipment and so on. And so the question is, the treadmill, if you look at it and it's being used properly, is there anything dangerous about it? And properly would be, well, let's follow the instructions. The instructions are, you got to be 16 or older, put the key in and you use it. When you're done, you pull the key out and you walk away. And obviously, while you're using it, you should be aware of what's behind you to make sure there's nothing going on back there with respect to little kids or objects that could work their way underneath there or pets, right? But most adults can track that kind of stuff. So when I'm riding my Peloton, I'm aware of what's around me. When I'm riding my mountain bike on the road, I'm aware of what's around me as well. And so that seems to be if you use it properly, you're okay. But there is a consideration that you have to think about, and that is that there are a lot of things out there that people buy. They have warning labels on them, say, do not do this, and that's all people do with them. They just ignore the warnings. So go find a package of cotton swabs. Some of them are sold under the brand name of Q-tip. And go look at a package of Q-tips or other generic cotton swabs. And look at the instructions. And instruction number 1 is do not insert into the ear. Do not use this on your ear. Don't get this anywhere near your ear. What's the number 1 use of Q-tips? People jam them in their ears. And so the question then becomes, if you are a manufacturer or you are a distributor of a product and people are going to misuse it, what can you do to prevent that? Or is that even your problem? And so, there are some of these things that people have got workarounds for. One of the examples I can think of is how lawnmowers have evolved. When I was a kid, I used to mow lawns for the neighbors. Had a big old, I think it was a Craftsman lawnmower, and you would just yank it and start pushing it around and mowing grass. And if you walked away from it, the blade kept going, And I remember walking along and I'd see something in the grass over here. And as I was walking by, pushing the mower with one hand, reach down, pick the thing up and toss it over to the side that I just mowed and come back and just keep going. And of course, nowadays, mowers have got all kinds of safety features on them, dead man switches and so on, where if you let go of the handle, it kills the engine, And I'm assuming they did that because some knuckleheaded teenager went to reach over here to pick something up and accidentally tripped and fell and badness ensued. So the question becomes, does Peloton have to do something beyond what they've done? Warnings all over this thing, 16 or older only. Put the key in to use it, yank the key out when you're not using it, and watch what's behind you. And it's going to come down to how many issues there are versus how many of these things are out there. And then, is there an easy fix for this or not? And the number of treadmills that are out there is quite large. Will they have to do anything differently here? It's hard to say. But it's interesting because of the fact that these two are sniping at each other. And the Consumer Product Safety Commission has issued a warning and said basically, stop using these things. Stop using these things. And Peloton saying, look, we're aware of a couple tragic incidents, but we've issued these warnings and made this thing in a way that should be safe. So could we at least look at that first and move forward from there? So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because this, Peloton's a very, very high profile company, and the CPC's warning is actually, quite serious. So how this will play out, I don't know. But I urge the parties to get together and discuss it and take a look at it, because there are a lot of treadmills out there. And I'm not sure that we necessarily need to stop using all of them. And I'd be curious to know what the number of treadmills is out there versus how many incidents there are with them. Because it might be that it is an extremely small number, and it's just simply because there's so many of them out there right now. So I will continue to follow this, but thank you everybody who sent to me. Mark, Phillip, Josh, Jeffrey, and Trocon. CPSC issues warning and a troubling video after child gets caught under a Peloton Tread Plus. Meanwhile, Peloton says CPSC publishes misleading, inaccurate bulletin on Tread Plus product safety. So there you go. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. What does it mean to pre-board? Do you get on before you get on?